Yeah, no, what happened here?
And so what we're doing, just to roughly explain what the feasibility study is, it's trying to develop a building and then test fitting that building on different sites. There are 3 sites that were selected: Simon's Way, Oakland Road, and then the Pleasant Street to do an addition. And so we'll develop a program where we figure out what types of rooms, how big they are, what special accessories they might have, and then turn that into a schematic plan. That will be a separate conversation, a separate charrette, if you will, get an opportunity to kind of design that together. And then every time something is proposed or presented, there's an opportunity to give feedback. So it's intended to be a very fluid, iterative process. And in terms of programming, just trying to figure out what rooms you want, that could go all the way to the end of the feasibility study. And I was telling the last group, you could be tweaking the program until the building's constructed. So nothing's etched in stone today. We're just kind of doing a brainstorming session. Shred's just a fancy way of saying brainstorming session, but really focusing on the types of spaces that you'd like to see. So these packets here, I printed out packets rather than doing a PowerPoint because I didn't want to be talking to you guys. I wanted to
Rachel,
together.
sorry,
Yeah,
can I just interrupt you? She's gotta call the meeting to order.
Forgive me. Go ahead.
All right.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. All those in attendance, please attend. No, I know I have to go down and take.
Joe, can you hear us?
Here.
Yes,
All right, here. Marilyn. Karen. Karen.
Here.
Jean.
Here.
Joan.
yes. Yeah. We're,
Okay. Good.
Mark's here too.
Who else is there? Mark, but I don't, he doesn't matter. I don't matter.
Well,
Can you guys turn on the video in the conference room, please? It's not on.
Yeah, I
stand by.
just asked Chris to help me. Sorry. I don't know why it resets like that every time.
Yeah, that's a nice paper. A nice paper for the color.
Thank you.
So yeah, so I didn't want to do a PowerPoint, but I did print out these slides as kind of a place to start. I have a few slides in here that kind of show you the typical spaces you would see in a center. I can go through those.
Is it the same one you already presented for? us?
It's a little different. It's,
Can you point out the stuff that's different?
Sure. So the project schedule, that's the same as last time. There's a definition of what programming is. Basically, it's just, again, developing a very thorough list of spaces in the building, their sizes, and what's special about them. And it's reiterative, and it's really, if you're using the analogy of writing an essay, it's the outline for the, you refer to it constantly as you're developing a design. So then I will dive into some of those spaces. So this is in the packet. It starts with core spaces, the lobby. And some of this might seem obvious. The accessible center has a generous lobby with a reception and a place to wait. And this is 2 images of that same lobby, so you can kind of see the different spaces it has. Yes, it's like that color.
Not obvious at all since our center isn't.
Then another core space is the great room. So the great room that we would propose would be about 2,500 square feet, which is in essence 3 times larger than your space now. Yours is about 800 square feet.
Excuse me, Rachel.
Yes.
I was just showing us samples of pictures. Thank you.
Yes.
And things that we may want.
Exactly.
Is
Exactly.
anyone looking for feedback at this time or not?
You can chime in now, and then I did bring some questions to kind of go through to guide us. So and I'm gonna go through this quickly, because I think it's kind of obvious, but great room, it's usually got a dividing curtain in it, so you can use activities. The old school model of using a great room was that half of it would be for the dining, lunches and breakfasts, and it would stay set up as tables and chairs all day. I'm proposing to have a separate dining area so that you can use the entire multi-purpose room. Great room usually has also additional equipment to do presentations. And then the second image, this is also a great room, pretty much the same size as the one before, but it has a giant lofty space. You can see it being used for more formal events, and so that's something to consider. And then in addition, the great room is always associated with a kitchen. It can be a commercial kitchen like you have now. The commercial kitchen you have now is about 400 square feet. That is probably the same size as what we proposed for the work area, but then you'd have another additional 400 square feet of storage, walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers, pantries. That can definitely get larger. Our commercial kitchens or our kitchens go up to 1,200 square feet. And so that's a conversation to have about what you want. Yeah.
You said ask questions now.
Yeah, please.
If it stayed at the current side, would it become handicapped accessible? 'Cause right now you'd have a tough time in there with a wheelchair.
Yep, yeah.
So in the same little space.
I'll give you, I'm kind of getting a little wonky here, but the accessibility law in Massachusetts is if you do anything to an existing property where that exceeds a third of the value of the property, and I have not looked up what the Pleasant Street Center is assessed at. I meant to do that, I did not. But let's just say the Pleasant Street Center is assessed at $3 million, and you want to do upgrades, renovations, whatever it is, that comes to $1 million. You're then obligated to update every space so it's fully accessible to the current accessibility level.
Yeah, it's another whole discussion, but something we definitely learned during the last round with recalc was that the accessibility standards are minimum standards.
Yes.
And far below what we
Yep.
probably want.
Yep.
For what we're going to build.
Yeah.
I don't take comfort in hearing what the law says,
Yeah.
and it's a big discussion.
So the kitchen could be a very gracious 1,200 square feet and have lots of room. It can have a large island in the center for teaching. These kitchens take on a whole, they can go either direction if that makes sense.
Excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yep.
You don't have PowerPoint to show?
Oh, because you can't see anything. I can do the PowerPoint. I have to run back out to my car. Do you guys want to?
I don't think that the PowerPoint is really that value, like you're just showing pictures of other centers and examples of other centers. I think like the key thing is the questions that she'll ask.
Fair point, fair point.
Yeah.
Can you just open? Did you email it to them?
Yes, I can leave behind a copy, sorry.
No, I meant so they could be looking at it.
Forgive me, I just didn't bring my person and that's where the USB was. So program rooms generally are sized around 750 square feet with about 50 square feet of storage. They can go up to 1,000 square feet. The benefit of going up to 1,000 square feet is you have a room that's very flexible. So if you ever wanted to get to a different use for it, 1,000 square feet probably would accommodate that. So for example, if you wanted to do an adult day program, generally that's 1,000 square feet. So if you have a regular program room that's 1,000 square feet, you can always retrofit it in the future. Or the issue that Needham's having right now, they have their fitness center is about 700 square feet and their game room is 1,000 square feet. And they realize they need more space for their fitness room. So they're moving it into that. They're taking that 1,000 square feet. So that's a program room. We also like to design program rooms in a Goldilocks principle, small, medium, and large. We find that really helps with programming the space, i.e. scheduling activities. Yep.
Do you have a sheet that has these numbers just so?
I do.
for general- Okay,
Great.
Because they're really helpful
We
numbers.
can get into the weeds like
No,
that.
I don't want to get into the weeds. I just want after the meeting to be able to say, so how many square feet did you say we need?
Centers usually have a lounge. That lounge could be associated with a lobby. It could be its own space. And that could be a space where you have meals. So it could be with a beautiful fireplace and soft seating, but then have some tables and chairs. So you could have a formal lunch, you could have just a snack, you could have just coffee. It takes a lot of pressure again off that multi-purpose room. Then support spaces, we can get into that. What type of restrooms do you want? Are you okay with ganged restrooms where you have the stalls inside one large restroom? Do you want a whole bunch of individual smaller restrooms? Usually, even if we did ganged restrooms, we would still have a large companion restroom on each floor. So that's a single stall, but it's generously proportioned so you can have 2 people in it. So that's where we're talking about exceeding minimums.
Right.
Offices, of course, I know you're deficient in office space right now. Fitness studios. Fitness studios can range in size. You could have 2 pieces of equipment in a fitness room. You could have a fitness room like this where you have, I don't know, 20 pieces. And the real expense is not the room itself, but it's the equipment that goes in it. Sometimes, like, I think this is a picture of Falmouth, and I think they got a grant for their work ethic. A dance studios are around 1,000 square feet. It's like the sweetheart number. And it's usually just a big room, doesn't have much else. Has a lot of storage, like for like chair yoga, exercise balls, those kind of things. Grab bar, yeah, and bars. Game room, similar to what you have now. It probably could be larger, so it has more activities in it, card tables or ping pong or a seated area for watching TV. And then outdoor spaces, of course. So some of the sites lend themselves very nicely to bocce and patio and a playground if this was a intergenerational center. But the Pleasant Street Center is obviously limited in what outdoor amenities can be provided. And then the last gym. So this gym has a walking track on the second floor. The last group is buried for a walking track. And it's usually like a regulation high school sized gym. You can imagine what gym is, it's about that big and can accommodate 3 pickle courts, a regular basketball court, volleyball court, and then you have the track. And then lastly, what I'll call special spaces. This is a greenhouse that we had done for Randolph. That was the space that the seniors came to us and said, we really like a hothouse. So I'm sure there are spaces like that for you guys, and I'd really like to hear what they are. So those are those spaces. The diagrams we don't have to get into, and if it comes up in conversation. But I did want to dive into the questions, because of course I want to hear what you guys are thinking. So I sorted the questions into 2 general pots, general questions and specific questions. So general questions, just to open things up. What works at Pleasant Street? It helps to start positive. There may not be a lot, but there are stuff. And then what doesn't work? So I chimed in, I said, what does work is it's a beautiful building and it's very unique in its architecture, and that's very special and fun.
I personally think location.
Okay. Anything else?
Must be something.
You also have a beautiful patio.
I like Chris's little office.
Yeah.
I do too.
Across from the-
Well, I think
Because-
it's cozy, that's where I'd want to
The
be.
characteristics of the building are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Rachel was just saying, it's just amazing.
Mhm.
So my question is this, we've looked at all these wonderful suggestions. But if it came down to the present site, what are our limitations and where do we go from there? I mean, this is great, we're starting from foundation up. But right now, we have the Pleasant Street Center, our space is limited, not only in the building, but our space within the town can be limited for new build. So my concern, again, is there any way to propose going forward that we could see what the new site of the present location would look like?
Sure.
Or what it would be the room dimensions?
Sure, I do have some sketches. I used them in the interview actually that we had. But just to give you a quick overview, you can put an addition on the back. And there's not a lot of original historic material inside the building. So you could make an argument that you could just gut the inside. That would have to be signed off by these, historic. But if you did that, if you were allowed to gut the inside of the building and put an addition on the back, you would lose some parking. You would come out, I think you'd lose about 5 spaces. You wouldn't have space for the emergency generator. You could move those condensing units that are on the ground right now, those could go somewhere else. The addition would be about 6,000 square feet. And so the multi-purpose room in this design, we can look at it, it's in the back. But that,
Is another option for that though, when I think about it.
and that's just one option.
Yeah, would be, you'd have an addition over the entire parking lot. And you'd still have all the parking underneath,
but your addition would go out over the parking.
So I'll admit, I have never done a center where we had a parking garage or underground parking associated with it,
Well, it's
but I'm not
just,
saying it's not possible.
yeah, it would be, the existing parking would stay there and you would just be putting the floor
Like the
on
second
top of
floor.
that. Yeah.
That's something, I can certainly look
Yeah.
at that. I think, one reason I put the addition at the back is generally when you're working with historic properties, you don't touch the front, right? You kind of try to hide the addition a little. But yeah, that's something I can look at.
Excuse me, you're saying out the back, because when I'm looking, say here at the front of the building.
Yep.
That to me is historic
Yep.
and that's the beauty of the building.
Yeah.
But when you're going down Parker Street. And then you have to take your left going into the parking lot.
Mhm.
Could there not be a building on the other side of that entrance and do a walkway connecting one building
Yep.
to the other?
And so if you can envision where the generator is now,
Okay.
that's about where the addition is, it's just much larger. But so then the spaces you could get in there, if you imagine using the entire first floor for that great room, it's still gonna be undersized for what we would recommend. We recommend 2,500 square feet, and I think that it becomes around 1,800 square feet at the end of the day. So that's still, but that, when you're thinking about, just to be pros and cons, usually when we do a multi-purpose room that's 2,400 square feet, we subdivide it into an 800 square foot small room and a 1,600 square foot big room. So that's getting you your big room. Then you have quite a few program rooms, and I think it would accommodate the office needs in this just one initial concept. What it's probably not gonna get you is like a gym, for example. Trying to think of it, and then outdoor spaces, like I was saying to the group before, I think the only way to really get a functional addition for Pleasant Street would be to have someone donate a property next door or somehow acquire it, or, you know, just for parking. And it's not unheard of. Newton, actually, the property next door to them is deeded to them. It's just that the person who's there is till they pass. So that's when it gets deeded over to the town. And I do think they're actually thinking of using it for parking.
Which
Stone.
property is deeded to the town?
So you've got the Newton Senior Center. Immediately to it, you know, if you're looking at a plan and north is up, it's to the right.
This?
No, not for
It's
us.
not right.
Not
needed.
Not this.
That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
It would.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I agree. I like Nancy's idea of elevated
Yeah.
buildings so the because parking is an issue. I also was walking by the centers the other day and I noticed there's about, Chris, you can probably know the dimensions longer. There's a whole grassy area to the left of the building and it maybe 10 feet wide and it,
It's a little bit long, it's about 60 by 12 or 15. It's right where those two trees are,
yeah,
because we were actually exploring putting a bocce.
yeah. Have you considered using that space?
Yes. That would,
Okay.
everything that's within the property, you know, within the property line in that site is fair game in essence.
Yeah.
And in terms of, basically the way the process will work is we will figure out the program, figure out how many program rooms we want, figure out how big you want your kitchen to be, figure out if you want a fitness room or a dance studio or anything else you think of.
all of the.
It might be all of the above. And then we take those ideas and we start to give you some conceptual plans. You react to those, you give us feedback, you say, oh, I don't like this room next to that. I want this room over here. I want more bathrooms, whatever it is. And there's a process, it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until we get something that we're all comfortable with. Then we take that design, plop it down on all the sites and say, oh, does this work? Do we need to tweak it? And it might be that the design at Oakland Road is a little different than the design at Simon's Way because you're working with site conditions. And then we will have a community activity where we figure out what's important for us in terms of evaluating the sites. What's all the criteria we would use to assess it? Walkability, connection to outdoors, you know, you name it. And then we assess each site based on that criteria and try to give you a really unbiased assessment.
See, I'm concerned about affordability.
Yes, and price, forgive me.
Get back to the
Yeah.
questions,
Yeah, let's-
because
so-
we have a limited
yeah,
amount of time, so.
so we only have-
questions.
We want to make sure we stay on task, because we only have about another 35 minutes. So she has a whole series of questions to be able to pull ideas of what you all want. So this is kind of like so she can get an idea of, okay, where will that work?
And to your point, one of the things that would be helpful today is to prioritize those sites. So that, or those spaces. So then when we do have, when we do maybe go over budget, we know what we can cut out. Right. And what we can't.
One of my questions is about computer room.
Okay,
Where would that fit in?
didn't come up. You guys want a computer room?
It's
Yeah.
very
Would
highly
it be
utilized.
helpful to put things up on the whiteboard as
If
we?
you'd like to.
Rachel-
Then she's,
Rachel- Rachel's grading everything down for us.
Okay.
so.
Is this
Well, just-
recorded?
yes.
It is.
The RCTV's there, yeah. So you want a computer room, a class of 15, 20. What do you think the class size would be? Bigger, smaller?
Oh, I'm just laughing because it sounds so wonderful.
They were finding that their computer room wasn't really
Yep.
utilized as much as they
Read
thought it
my
was gonna
report,
be.
Jenna?
I know, yeah, so they're actually moving to laptops. And using that as another multi-purpose room, so like it'll be a computer lab from whatever time to whatever time. And you can bring the laptops out and then you put the laptops away,
Like a mobile.
yes.
if you want.
That makes a lot
That
more
makes
sense.
Yeah.
This actually
Could
goes-
we definitely
Rachel, does this
need-
go to, hold on one second, I need to, this goes to second question, right?
Yeah.
This falls in,
So those questions, again, still working out that general questions list. We did talk about what doesn't work. If you want to chime in, you can. But to move on to the next question, what programs do you want to see that don't fit in the space now? So like, I think there was mention of a dining activity where you had 60 participants, but a wait list of 25. So that to me says you need a bigger break room to accommodate big special meals. So big special meals would be a type of program that you can't accommodate from here. There are other ones like dance or I'm just throwing things out. Outdoor, you're limited in doing outdoor events. It was mentioned that the health fair that's run really doesn't work because you have people upstairs and downstairs. So again, a bigger break room would help with that.
mentioned like the Hillview event at Hillview, it'd be nice if we had a big enough space to host that big of an event at our center.
And that would be great, but then you also would have to have a commercial kitchen to accommodate that.
Yeah.
My other thought would be, I would like to see a general, separate creative art room.
Okay.
Whether it's for artists, whether it's for fiber arts, for clothing, making sure there would be sufficient outlets to accommodate the incoming programs.
Could do even like a makerspace. It was suggested to have a kiln. A makerspace might just be, to your point, have a lot of electricity, proper ventilation, so you can use like a CNC fabricating machine. It's kind of really smelly when it's like burning and cutting things.
3D printer.
3D printer, that's what, yeah. But yeah, certainly you could have a space like that, a large craft making space. You could have a potter, kiln, pottery wheel, and there's a storage associated with that. So I can certainly give you guys a plan that includes that.
Rachel, one of the things we definitely need is a reception area that is quiet and confidential and away from any activities. And any elevators that are added, that has to be away from activities. The source of constant interruption, anything going on in the great room.
You mentioned,
We need a place for people to sit and have coffee or chat. So we need a social place like that. We need several private conference rooms. So when Shine is
Private
doing
office
their
space.
appointments, it can be done without necessarily moving everybody around.
Kicking the guys out from the pool table.
Yeah.
And
Keep
it's
it away
room
from
that
the
actually
lights.
has walls that go to the ceiling, so it actually is private, because right now it's in a partition.
Correct.
Close the door, but the sound goes right over the wall.
Yeah.
And any partitions that go in, you talk about dividing the great room. We have to make sure those partitions are soundproof and they go all the way to the ceiling. Because it's not gonna do any good to have aerobics on one half And the music comes into the other half where they're
Meditating.
meditating. Right, right, so.
And I will say on that note that I'm not a magician and some ways to improve a I can give you a wonderful space, but there are always gonna be what I call administrative controls that are gonna help it function better. So like I wouldn't put a meditative class next to it.
Right.
But I hear your point. I hear your point, but it's
So the way that the center is now, that has to happen because there's not enough space. So, and there's also not enough space on either end of the program that allows for that kind of program participants to leave, but still chat and interact and we don't have that now because they've got to get in, get out, because that room has to be set up for something.
yeah, and in the last group, they were talking about like the kids programs that they would sometimes do. And they had to tell the parents that you can't hang around because you can't be in the classroom space. And this is just a drop-off program. So that's, yeah, you need some breathing room, some, larger hallways, or it would even help. Yeah.
Related, for people who need a companion to get them there, to help them there, whatever, there needs to be a reasonable place for the companion to comfortably use the hour or so to read or do whatever they want, socialize on their own with other companions. And it needs to be a nice space. I mean, we want those people to feel welcome, not just the companion, but the person they're.
Rachel, excuse me, the other thought that I would like to see, if possible, is could even be under a stairwell in a small mini closet. I know a couple of other centers have it. It's almost like a mini store that the seniors,
Okay, the gift shop?
a gift shop. And then that can be, whether it's recycled items that they want, or someone has donated an item and the proceeds go to, say, Council on Aging, Friends of the Council on Aging. And that could be like almost an incentive to people to be busy, to gather, say, in the creative arts area, that they're working together on a certain goal.
Changing subjects, just a little slightly, durable medical equipment storage, is that something that you do
Durable what?
currently?
Metal.
Wheelchairs, walkers.
We have some things like a few walkers and wheelchairs that we will lend out, but nothing beyond that because of our limited storage.
But also for people coming in, they might not need to stay in their wheelchair. There needs to be a place they can put it on the side of the room and get back to it easily at the end.
And definitely a designated coat closet for the participants that enter the building.
I'm just noting that there's common themes between the.
And there needs to be more rooms. I mean, now we have 2 small rooms and a great room. One of the other rooms has computers in it, the other one has a pool table. We definitely need double the number of rooms, in addition to conference space, offices, private meeting space.
A larger game room,
Larger game room.
Yes.
more options.
Storage, we need storage throughout the building.
Sunshine, I think Pleasant Street Center, that's actually a good point. It has nice sun in most, well, the upstairs buildings.
Another positive.
Yeah,
It
it is.
does have great light.
I think it has beautiful windows on the basement, I guess it doesn't, but that's an important thing to maintain.
Handrails throughout and non-glaring floors for safety.
On cement floors, which are all dancing
Yeah,
on.
I gotta say, that's gotta be rough.
That's the worst type of floor for us to be on.
Usually for the dance studio, we put in a spring floor.
Mhm.
So and we could do it for other rooms. Sometimes if there's not enough space, we have a program room, so it has tables and chairs in it, but it also has that special floor. So if you're ever doing an activity, just do, it's pretty flexible.
Whatever the state of the art is, and I don't know what that is because I'm no expert, but on sound systems so that people who are hard of hearing,
Yes.
we'll have it minimized. And the same for any kind of site, limited site. I don't know what's available, but it needs to be and not be a minimum accessible ADA it needs to be? What, I would ask that from this process, if, I know you know all of this, but we don't, I certainly don't, some of us know far more than I do. But I would like to become educated on what the state of the art is on accessibility and to aim for the state of the art. If we can't afford it, we can't afford it, but let's at least know what the best is, because it's not ADA standards. We do know that.
Although I want to throw in something with that I
Yeah.
find really important,
Yeah,
state of the art, but simple.
I'm fine with that.
I cannot, for the life of me, turn the lights on and off at the library community room. I don't know how to. And I have spent way too much, you know, I cannot,
Yeah.
you know, so I love state of the art,
Okay.
but it has got to be simple.
Yeah, and
Like,
Chris,
yeah.
Chris, like us meeting with IT, tell them about at center now,
Oh, yeah, we were,
same thing.
yeah, we were talking about upgrading our AV and getting a hearing system and a new projector with better visibility, but we were also talking about,
Which is all transferable to a new center, by the way.
Yes. but the key is, please make it
Yeah.
simple. You know,
Especially if other people are going in there to use the room, like you
as a
said.
staff member, trying to figure out a touch screen for 10 minutes is not.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
To go back to the floors too, I think that bathrooms and elevators are also spots where water tends to gather and should be non-slip.
Okay.
Now, Rachel, what about first aid site? I mean, to be certain that there is maybe a small area that would have medical supplies, like if need be, a special location for seating if someone is ill before medical team comes on board
So,
to assist. I mean, is that something that other centers have?
like, almost like a sick room in a
Yes.
school.
Similar, I mean, it could be,
Yeah.
you know,
Should be confidential too. Because
Yeah.
a lot of health issues are handled in the great room. It's not confidential.
Yeah, no, I hear you there.
Maybe they could have like a separate nurse's office where like the nurse advocate could
Exactly,
use,
right,
but also use it as,
an emergency type site.
yeah.
So you guys are unique because you have a full-time nurse. A lot of times we'll design what we call a nurse professional office, which is meant to just be a flex space for a visiting professional, like a Shine
Mhm.
help or an accountant during a tax season or a nurse for a clinic. But we might consider an even separate room for that, an additional flex office, in addition to the nurse's office.
We have drop-off space and pickup space on the list yet?
So like a waiting lobby or something outside,
I'm thinking inside.
inside. So a generous lobby where you have good visibility of the cars
Cars
coming in.
coming up and cars can easily come up to the door and
Yeah.
not have to get out and come in and ask for the, you know,
Yeah.
you get it.
We try to do drop-off spaces where we can.
Okay,
One center we're doing right now has like a porte cochere even, that like extends out, you know what that is? It's like a canopy that extends out, so if you're getting out of the car, you're not getting wet.
go nicely under Nancy's second floor.
There you go.
I
The whole
wanna
parking.
go back to the number of floors. Whatever we decide and want in the end is gonna have to go before town meeting members and then ultimately before the people who vote. Throughout the town of Reading, whether it's a merchant or somebody shopping, parking is an issue. I agree with her, the bottom level should be saved for parking, but I think we should go up a level and have 2 levels for parking. And then have the building above it, because that's gonna be a selling point in front of the town meeting members and in front of the voters, offering parking in the square.
So I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. If, I'm gonna tell you that a center of this size with these size rooms would need at least 70 parking spaces. But we do have a consultant who will actually do a parking and traffic analysis and give us a much more reliable number than that. I don't think it will be smaller though. I think it's evidently will go higher. And so that's gonna be one of the limitations of Pleasant Street. And I know when I visited, the municipal lot across the street is full, like, but maybe it's creative conversations like the police cars moving out of the municipal lot or something,
Where are
you
they
know.
gonna go?
I-
That's not gonna happen.
So,
And I guess that leads to my question, because we're really talking very much about Pleasant Street.
are the other options off the table?
Of course not.
No.
And
Because we're not really talking about that at all.
Related to that,
Focused on
you
money.
said we'd settled on 3. Has anything been ruled out? Or
No.
we've only explored 3? Okay.
nothing,
Okay.
I think all of them are doable. I think,
No, I mean beyond the 3, were there any that?
oh,
have been-
additional ones.
There's nothing that's been left in the dust already? Okay. Okay.
What is the Oakland Road?
So there's a property right across, you're coming in, you're starting to turn to go up the hill to the high school. There's a property right on the left. It's wooded, it's hilly.
It has to be blasted.
Opposite the
doesn't
high
it?
school.
But,
Yeah, it does.
Fidel suggested for those, that housing.
has to be blasted, and there's all houses there. That won't work.
But just so everyone knows, and I do have to go in a minute, I apologize, but,
Right.
you know, when we were in a meeting at 3, we were thinking of big ideas too, just so you know. Like, we talked about adult day health, like, kind of program, you know, which would be kind of cool. You know, a gym, or we were kind of trying to think outside the box of like, what kind of program? So, you know, if we had the space, just to give Rachel some ideas, so. Really kind of think outside the box.
I think that gets to the question of, we seem to all be thinking senior center here. But it's not necessarily going to be just a senior center by any means, and I'm not advocating one or the other. But my mindset coming into here and my feel from this conversation is we're thinking senior center, which is great. We need first and foremost to make sure that's taken care of. But to your point, if we're not thinking of that, if we're thinking a community center more model, then I think that leads into the, let's think big, and I'll throw the swimming pool right in there.
I mean, even if you're just thinking of a senior center
Right.
alone, I don't know if Pleasant Street's enough. I mean, and we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But if it's just if it's a senior center or a community center, I don't know if Pleasant Street Center is the best site for
Right.
what the community needs.
Right.
But we talked about dedicated, you know, that
Space.
actually came up, like, we really like the idea of, you know, rec on this side and senior centers on this side with a little mix, but just.
Yeah, like with some shared space.
And I also ask, if we're going to approach this, if it gets to this point that you approach the historical powers that be, are we limited to 2 floors? I was at Arlington's Community Center yesterday for a class. They've got a 4-floor brick building and it's just heavenly.
Could be.
No, I don't think we're limited to floors in that option. Do you guys want to transition to talk, thinking big picture about like community center?
No.
So
Outdoor space.
outdoor space,
Outdoor space, there's no outdoor space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the patio doesn't get.
I think-
used.
it doesn't get used.
No, it got limited shelter and not very comfortable furniture. And it just,
Not
it's hot, it doesn't get used.
Here's my
It's pretty.
If say we were to go to the present site and renovate, we do have a patio, but what about rooftop garden?
Yeah, certainly we could look at that. I think that a tight site like that is where you have to get creative. But gardening, like, would you like space for gardening beds or a community garden? A walking trail. A lot of times we do just like a 1/4 mile little trail. So you can do, you know, your laps or just, you know, walk with
We'd
your
have to
friend.
be inside its way.
Yeah,
We'd have to be someplace that has that.
but
Yeah.
that's what
That's
we're
an
gonna
option.
evaluate. We're gonna say that
Okay,
the
so we
pros
should
and
look away
cons
from
are.
just
So
thinking
right
about
now,
Pleasant
you're
Street
just
Center.
kind of looking for brainstorming.
Yeah,
ideas,
right,
and you're
brainstorming
not
session.
wedded to a location.
Nope.
So put walking. trails
Definitely
in
outside.
there.
And
So outdoor amenities
outside
are
space.
important.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And, yeah, because there's a whole group of seniors that are very active. And, you know, we need
And there's a whole
those-
group of seniors that don't get out.
Yeah,
Because they don't have that kind of space, they live in apartments, whatever. This should be a space that has things they don't have.
mhm.
A welcoming space, that's why the lobby is so important, welcoming lobby is so important.
Yeah.
Places to just talk.
Yeah.
So I'm writing that space needs to be welcoming. So let's just talk like the specific questions I have. So sounds like you want a large commercial kitchen with teaching space.
Totally handicapped, it's truly accessible, not ADA.
I think the parking is still a huge issue. I mean, I've gotten parking tickets.
Yeah. And if we know parking, then there's. Yeah.
And we don't have a transportation system that,
Yeah.
because I was doing the Shine counseling.
Wait, where's the 2-hour spots?
It's with, it's with the rooster.
Game room can get larger to accommodate different lounge activities.
Movie theater.
That's a sweet idea.
Well, comfortable seats that you like to sit in for 2 hours and watch a screen. It doesn't have to always be set up that way.
Or to listen to a
Or
lecture.
to listen to a lecture,
Yeah.
have a guest speaker,
Yeah.
a media room. I think that's what it'd be called in a house anyway.
Yeah.
Or to have a concert.
Yeah, we talked about that the last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the multi-purpose room would be fit out with like a very state-of-the-art audio-visual system, so you could have presentations, lectures, musicians. We talked about having a stage.
Exactly.
And it would be very important that our current large room, the periphery is all tables, chairs, and it's I think, in order to make it more welcoming, there needs to be a place to put all those
Yeah,
things
storage.
and hide them.
Yeah, that the room looks cluttered because it's got,
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, so storage definitely will be part of this program. The gym, talking about a gym with a walking track. We said no lockers, nothing, no weight room associated with it. Do you have a preference in terms of restrooms? Like restrooms could be ganged restrooms like you traditionally see with stalls, it could be several individual single stall or single user restrooms.
I think that the stalls
Either
would
or,
be
but
great,
more
to make
off.
sure that you have that companion based one that might not be integrated with that, so it could be males or females.
I think what they're doing is having the traditional bathrooms saying gender neutral. I don't really like it. I was in Stoneham Theater and I think I saw men's boots next to me. I didn't like that at all. But I mean, we could have a couple of stalls for gender neutral and just have a man and woman's bathroom.
A combination of,
And keep it with the stalls, larger bathrooms, keep them with the stalls.
Communication center, someplace where people can put things on it. I mean, we have it to a degree on the shelf space we've got, but a place where people can put bulletin boards,
oh yeah,
whatever they want.
because we're talking about like an information little.
Yeah,
corner.
at the one in North Andover, they've got a whole section on the town's transportation. They post the latest train schedules.
Oh,
They've got a whole section on council on aging announcements. They got a whole section on program scheduling, a whole section. I mean, it's like a wall and it's all brochures you can pick up. It's like, how useful. I mean, but it's a wall. It would like take half of that wall to do it. It's big, so it takes place.
In terms of private spaces, and I suppose this is where the staff have to come in, because there's a lot of individual things. Shine is one, but now there's also the podiatrist that comes in. There's someone that comes in now to cut hair. You know, I don't know if we'll end up with more of those things, but that's,
Tax program,
yeah, taxes.
a little lawyer.
Yeah, wasn't there someone also that was coming in and doing estate
Manicures,
counseling
manicures they were doing at one time.
at one time?
Yeah, and a state, yeah.
I have seen centers that have either it's a volunteer room where people can just sort of hang out, place where you can put your bags or something when you come in, and it's for multiple categories to use, and I've seen some that even have council on aging mini office. I mean, it's a room where, you know, you could leave your stuff and you could organize out of it. It's, again, in Reading, council on aging is a separate thing.
So how
They
does-
run in parallel together, but
How does that room work, where you leave things?
if Nancy and I wanted to meet up, we could say, let's go to the COA room, and we could check if it was free and you know, it would be there. If we wanted to organize something like, you know, an activity that we needed to coordinate with volunteers, it could be, we'll meet here, we can hand out stuff here. It's just, it's clubhouse for the volunteer activities. This is kind of how I see it in my mind. It could be shared. It doesn't have to be dedicated to one group or another. But, and it could even be, you know, a wing off of whatever the new activities, volunteer coordinator is getting for space. But there needs to be something.
Yes, I think you did already.
Rachel, what about veterans?
We talked about veterans being a part of this, especially if it's a community center. Definitely, I can look at accommodating that in the Pleasant Street as well.
But there are some senior centers that do have the veterans right on site.
Definitely, yeah.
So I think that would be something to consider.
Going back to the rooftop idea, not just for gardening, but also an outdoor space, just for a welcoming place.
We can have barbecues. Probably be forbidden. Rooftop, probably fireworks. We could go to the fireworks there. Before we go to the roof.
We could.
Maybe
Rooftop
also
restaurant.
think about landscaping and think of maybe something with raised beds. I mean, this past summer, we really looked for volunteers to help with the garden beds. And they were not coming forth. And I wonder if part of it is you have to get down on your knees, or everybody's busy doing their own gardens, so they don't want to spend the time doing that. But you've got people in apartments, and if it was easy, could even.
And Joe Plano, who came to the center all the time for years, took care of the outside and absorbed a lot of the expense. They aged out, exactly what you're saying, they couldn't get down on their knees, but they did a lot of work there. And the garden club is supposed to come in and clean up outside. I don't see it. And I think the outside needs a lot more tender care, so where we can get that from, I don't know.
I would like to think that it's an activity from our base, that there's gotta be
A program.
there's
Someone
gotta
that
be
can do that.
people that wanna do gardening.
We have a big gardening group at my place,
Okay,
but we bought raised beds because to accommodate, I work in an elderly complex.
Yeah.
And we have like 6, 8, 10 people that tend a garden area, but we did raised things because they couldn't bend down, so you make it, you know, and they love it.
What about groups like I don't know what they use for space, but there's a low vision support group, I understand, and there are other support groups.
Caregiver support group.
Caregivers, yeah, and they too could be that volunteer space, maybe that's where they fit, I don't know, but a place where any of these organizations could store supplies and use as a central touch point. And they could use available space in the building just like anyone else.
This is not on this list, but I'm thinking of the Needham Center. They have a library. It's a smaller space, but it's very intimate, has a fireplace, and it's where like they have their bereavement group. You can see how that really is nice, you know,
It's
very
very
institutional, yeah. So that might be a space we consider.
I would nix the fireplace, but yeah, unless you want to buy an electrical one. just-
Yeah, electric.
Popular.
Yeah, they actually have a bunch of the electrical ones, and like Andover has one. I don't know if North
Yeah.
Andover
North
has one,
Andover's
Salem has one.
beautiful.
We try not to do gas.
I think Linfield has one.
Yeah, they're nice. Panera stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
I always want to sit near the fireplace. It attracts people.
And Phil has a fireplace.
So,
Where?
right as you walk in that city, I don't know. Who knows? I
How
think
about-
it does.
How about a place to have a private phone conversation? So people aren't sitting in the middle of a class with, yeah, pick me up in 15 minutes. Just, you know, a alcove in a hallway even that's got
Or
a.
like the thing in the library, where
Yeah.
they've got a,
That's right.
basically an
Yeah.
alcohol box
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
can go in.
But a place where someone, you know, not the staff, they've got their own offices, but where someone is there who needs to take or make a phone call could go.
If they use it, people generally don't.
But they
Phone
could,
rings and
but they could, but if they're calling someone, their phone's not ringing, they're calling someone.
And we make it part of the culture.
Yes,
So that people understand
Right.
that
This
should
is
be having,
available.
yeah.
for the kitchen and, so the meals program that you have now, it's made off-site, it's heated in the kitchen, right? That's do you guys like that? No. Okay. Sorry. So would you, I know, that's fine. Would you like to see, like have a nutritionist or a chef full-time that's making meals that you might pay for, but it's a nominal amount?
I know Peabody just opened up a cafe.
Oh,
PBC,
yeah.
Andover has one too. They have a chef.
And they have their own chef and, oh yeah.
Falmouth
That-
has a
that's
chef
pretty
too, right?
good.
Is that-
No, they just,
Falmouth does. Falmouth is the one that
they
has it.
just opened up a brand new one within this past year. They have a brand,
Oh, it's,
they have a brand new cafe.
yeah, and it's a real cafe. I could go and buy lunch for $5.
Exactly, something,
So it's possible.
you know, not everyone wants to go and sit with others and have lunch. Maybe they want to purchase a lunch, a nutritional lunch, take it home maybe to a significant other, or they're going off someplace and they just want to meditate and have their own lunch.
Linfield, well, they did do it during the pandemic. I don't know if they still do, but they had a very large drive-through lunch program because they couldn't bring people in anymore. So people placed their orders and the chef would put it all together and they come lunchtime, they were out there on the sidewalk. Yep.
I think the cafe is really good.
I think it is.
Because the food that comes is Meals on Wheels. And it is not always palatable.
We don't get Meals on Wheels.
Oh, you don't?
No, it hasn't been for a while.
Where does it
We
come
reached
from?
the point, like, the kitchen, the 400 square foot kitchen is not necessarily a commercial kitchen.
That's right.
So the difference between a regular kitchen and a commercial kitchen, you have to have, a commercial kitchen is signed off by the Board of Public Health. And so they have cleanliness requirements. So stainless steel, easy to clean, so that's usually what you see. Not always, I mean, we could put something like a quartz countertop island in it, and that would probably be okay. And then it's about capacity, so usually you're more of everything, and that's why you go to, instead of a regular fridge, a walk-in cooler, because it's just, you're making so much more, you have so much more food and supplies in there that you need more space for storing them. That's usually the two things that
So
would
what's the
distinguish it.
minimum space for that?
I would say the minimum for a commercial kitchen is 700 square feet, but I don't think you want to meet the minimum. I think it's nicer to have 1,000 or even 1,200 square feet.
Cause you talked about 400 square foot kitchen earlier, but
Yeah.
that would not be sufficient
That's,
at all.
yeah, it's.
That's a regular kitchen as
Yeah.
opposed to if we were to bring in a chef.
Yeah, and chefs usually, this almost always happens on these projects, don't have a full-time chef now, so they can't weigh in. And so you hire one after the center is built, and then they're suddenly like, oh, I wanted this, and I wanted that, and I wanted that. It always happens. So the kitchens tend to be a little more generic and flexible, because we anticipate to provide a lot of outlets and counter space, and then they bring in the deli slicers and whatever, all this stuff.
So would you say a good sized kitchen would almost be the activity center to draw people in for programming also, if we were to have a cafe?
Yeah.
Yes, people want to eat all the time.
Yeah, food is, yeah.
Every day.
The other thing about, this is getting into the weeds, but with a commercial kitchen, you need to have,
Safe serve too.
yes, thank you. So that, chain of custody, if you're having a cooking class in there, you need someone who can sign off and say it's been cleaned and,
Right.
And that sometimes could be a limitation. You envision, oh, we have a great teaching kitchen, but that you don't have the staff.
But
Right, I
think
think
that
we're
again-
headed into the next
I
meeting,
would
all
love-
those.
So
so-
if any more ideas, questions, pass them through Jenna. I'm
Did we
happy.
hit all your big points?
Yes. And we also, I'm starting to see themes here, which I think is really helpful, that you guys aren't in opposition to what the previous group was saying, which is great, And again, this is a reader, so you'll react to what's in front of you and it will get lined from there.
Rachel, we had talked about the building being historic. So is that listed on the federal?
It is.
Do we have to get permission from the government and all of that?
There would be a process.
And how long does something like that take?
It's doable. It's not,
Okay.
it wouldn't be part of this design process now. This design process would probably just involve the local historic commission, just to make sure that we're on you know,
Yeah,
that we're not
that's that
proposing
part.
something that's in left field that they'd be adamantly opposed to.
I want to suggest that we think loud and long before we get involved with fixing up present Pleasant Street Center. Because it has ills from the roof to the mold. Upstairs.
They can
The wiring isn't, needs to be updated, the heating.
Just get a motion to adjourn.
About $200,000. And who's gonna pay for that? I mean, is the council on aging gonna try to raise money and ask the public to pay for it? I think you better think long and hard. Yes, the windows, the sunshine windows are beautiful. That's about the only thing to save, that and the railings when you go up and down the stairs. There's nothing else to save.
Oh.
Yeah, I said
Oh,
those.
I thought you meant like the second
No,
floor.
what you could do, if it had to be taken down, I'm quite
Maybe
sure.
you can't take that down.
Why not?
So you can't do anything to the outside of the
Yeah.
building.
Outside, yeah.
Okay, so you can reinforce what you need to reinforce. It
The
has to be
building's in
done
pretty good
over.
shape.
Are
What
grants,
building is?
grant research being part of this project somewhere?
So I think that'd be a question for Chris, but there definitely are,
Are grants being researched?
yeah, so one thing that
Yes,
we're
we're looking into that.
one thing that we discussed was CPA funds, that you're not currently, your town isn't part of that program, but especially for a project like this where you're restoring a building, that's kind of where CPA funds are very helpful.
What does that stand for?
Community Preservation Act, it's a,
I don't see putting 2 cents into that building, quite frankly.
There is grants for fitness equipment.
there are lots of grants.
ADA,
There are a lot of
I'm
them.
thinking,
If you think
Yeah,
that
that's
building
that's
as
the big
a-
there are
savings.
towns that actually built a new
And
senior
you
center
don't
with
think of that
ARPA funds.
building
And their
as-
act ready to go, but there are towns, there's
Except
at
for
least
that
one town, I heard on the news, that they took the
I mean,
front
the whole
building and they
thing would be
building the
good.
senior center.
Right.
But Jenna, that's good to know. If we were approved and given a grant, there are funds to.
Slate when it
kind of
comes to
supply
the
it. With
side.
the foundation.
Absolutely.
It's a needy free. Hello.
And the Friends of Running 60 Plus.
But the feasibility study
Yes,
is
so
so run out hard to,
We added to the feasibility study doing a existing conditions assessment of the building. The engineers walked through and they said, you know, the systems are working, but they're definitely, yeah, they're old. They've reached the end of their expected,
It could be gassed
Live.
out.
All right, I gotta start the next
All right.
meeting, but
Motion to adjourn, Nancy.
we're gonna look at the walls and see.
A
how they're-
second,
We still have to do that.
all in favor?
Aye.
And if you could
I
leave,
got nothing to go,
forgive me,
but I'm with you.
if you didn't mark up or take notes, if you could leave the package behind.
Oh,
that'd be helpful.
I am sure.
No, if you took notes, that's fine.